You're about to listen to a brand new episode of the Foreign Lady podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe. Now, let's get to the episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Foreign Lady podcast. I'm your host, Liz, and today we have a very special guest on the pod for you today. She is the founder and CEO of an AI women's pleasure company called Devin. Devin was created by a woman for women. It was built around women's needs, women's, our bodies, our desires, our belief that women deserve pleasure as well, not just men. Pleasure without negotiation, pleasure without guilt, and just connection without compromise. She's a Harvard business grad and she went to Columbia for undergrad. Yes. So she's a smarty pants as well, y'all. So please welcome Morgan, everyone. How are you doing? How are things? How's life? I saw that you were in Cannes. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, life has been amazing. We just closed a fundraising round, a $1.5 million investment. So life is looking very good over here at Devin. And you are right, I had an awesome opportunity to go to the Cannes festival, like media and arts festival in France. And it was also very, very, very fabulous. But now I'm back in America working my butt off.
I bet. Good. Well, how's life doing? I always like to start with the podcast with, like how are you doing? How are things with you? Because people sometimes don't stop to ask us how we're doing, or we just say, "Oh, we're fine. Oh, it's okay." This is just like a little quick little check-in of just like how have things been for you? How's your mental health? Just how are you feeling in general?
So right now is a really exciting time in my life because we just closed this financing round for Devin, but also in my personal life, I'm in a happy relationship for the first time in my life, and we're shopping for engagement rings. So that is always very, very,
That is
very,
awesome.
yeah, exactly. I mean, like obviously going and looking at diamonds all day. It's like a fun way to spend your weekend.
It's not a bad way to start your weekend. That is for sure.
Well, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Yeah, things are good. I had a bit of a hectic weekend, just with, busy and life, but other than that, it was good. I took a great long nap yesterday, which was much needed. So I'm doing great. I guess the first thing I wanted to ask you is talk to us a little bit about what made you start or think about starting Devin. Like, what was the moment that the light bulb went off and you were like, you know what, I need to start this pleasure company for women?
Yeah, so we're in the midst of one of the craziest technology revolutions of all time. And I feel like everywhere you turn, you hear about a new company, you hear about a new investment round, you hear about a new AI product. Like there's something new that you're hearing about every single day. If anything, I can't even keep up with technology right now.
Yeah.
But then I was looking at the vibrator industry, which is a huge, huge, huge industry. And I wasn't seeing any innovation in that industry. I would argue that there hasn't really been much innovation in that industry for 10 years. 10 years ago, a brand called Satisfier created like a suction type of pattern, which most famously was used in the rose. Everybody kind of lost their mind over that. That technology alone did about $10 billion of revenue. So when there is an innovation in this category, it ends up generating a lot of revenue, but there just really hasn't been an innovation in the category. And so my background is actually in AI. I worked in technology for Meta, then I started my first AI startup, and I was actually thinking about transitioning to being an investor. And as an investor, I was trying to find overlooked categories that had white spaces that deserved innovation. And so that's when I started thinking about the vibrator category. Then I honestly couldn't find a good company to invest in. I was like, damn, not many people are doing interesting things. And so as a result, I decided that I should just do it myself.
Look, when you find a space where you feel like, it's severely underrepresented, I feel like there are not a lot of people who take that initiative to be like, you know what, I'm going to do something about it. And that is very like commendable for you to see that gap and say, you know what, I'm going to go into that space that does not have a lot of representation, and I'm going to take charge and I'm going to do something about it. So I really do commend you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, something that bothers me is so like female sexual pleasure is such an important part of our health, but it's not invested in or innovated in as much as a category nearly as like male pleasure enhancements are. Um, I mean, you can just see like what happened with, Viagra and then also tech platforms that are prescribing. Basically, we as a society have made male erectile dysfunction a health problem that you should be able to use your insurance to solve.
Right.
Whereas the truth of the matter is less than 20% of American women can climax from just penetration alone. And most of us, we need tools like vibrators in order to experience sexual pleasure. And they're definitely not, something that you can use your insurance to buy.
Absolutely. Insurance is not going to cover that.
It's not going to cover that.
They're
Exactly.
not going to cover that.
Exactly. I personally think that the market for vibrators could be even bigger than the market for erectile dysfunction. But anyways, yeah, so there's a lot of reasons why I like this industry and why I think that it's underserved.
Yeah. I want to stick with that for a little bit. When we talk about, female pleasure, it's not really a conversation that is talked about, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it's just recently that we are even talking about, women's health in terms of like menopause or premenopausal, or what happens during that time where it's either our hormones is affected, where we whether it's like we lack there's dryness or there's a lack of interest in sex. A lot of people don't know that women peak in their 40s for sex, where men sort of start to decline in their peak for sex. And it's always been like a big taboo of like, we don't talk about, orgasms for women, or it's not women, like even women having pleasure is something that is just recently like, oh, it's a thing that can happen. Why do you think that is such a taboo topic that I think that society is sort of afraid to talk about or have conversations about, whereas men can have all of the Viagra pills they want, they have, all of the AI robot girlfriends they want, like all of these things and options for men, but we don't have options for women.
Yeah. I can just tell you what I'm currently experiencing starting this company and the reactions that I get from certain people, not everybody. Okay, so there's a subset of men who are really invested in female pleasure. And some of them, it's altruistic. They're just like, yeah, women should feel like pleasurable. The other ones, it's for a selfish reason, which is fine, which is like, yeah, if my woman has a lot of pleasure, then she'll want to have sex with me more, and then I get to have more pleasure, right? Either one of those choices, I kind of don't care because the end result is the same. You are invested in women's pleasure. Then you have another group of men who are very loud and are loud in many of my comments on my social media videos, who it feels like they only care about female pleasure if that pleasure can be attributed to them. So they're the ones that only want you to have an orgasm if it's them that's making you have an orgasm, right? And like that notion is frankly the reason why so many women fake it, right? Because like they do know that it is a huge part of their partner's ego to feel like it's like they're the man making them orgasm. Which is a huge, I think faking it is such a huge problem in our society and dating
There's
culture,
a lot of women that fake it.
including myself. Like
I have faked it a couple of times,
I don't know any
more
woman
than I
who has
like to
never
admit
faked
it.
it. I don't know, not one, I've asked all of my friends about this. I cannot find one woman who hasn't faked it. But the challenge is when you fake it, is that when you're like kind of pretending that you're always into it, and then when you're kind of like, shit, I'm really not into it, and I need him to either change what he's doing or we need to bring a toy in, then that can be a difficult discussion because he's like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
which I
It
have
turns
some.
into a conversation, which sort of ruins the mood, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Which like I learned actually from a sexologist who I was speaking to the other day, who is saying that actually the best way to broach that conversation is don't admit that you've been faking it. Just say, you know what, as I'm like getting older and as like things are changing in my body, what used to work for me is no longer working for me, and I think that I need to bring a toy in for additional help. So you're kind of like not really.
Yes, you're not telling them that it's not it's me, it's not you, you know?
Yeah,
Like, that's a better way of saying that, like, "No, this is totally me." I've versus, like, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
yeah. So anyway, to answer your original question about why do I think in society that it's more difficult to talk about female pleasure, especially when it comes to tools like mine, a vibrator, I think it's because it feels threatening to a man, to some men, the idea of a woman being able to feel pleasure without them, right? I've had people literally say to me that my invention is going to destroy society because if I invent the world's best AI powered vibrator, then no woman will ever want to have sex with any man again and nobody will have babies and like da 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 da. And that I literally have had investors past just like, this is obviously only male investors have said this to me. But I just feel like this could take down all of society. And then you know what I say? My response back to them is if you are really contributing that little emotionally to a relationship that
Yeah.
you think the entire relationship can be replaced by a plastic device, then I don't think that I'm the one ruining society.
Right, right. Like, if that is threatening to you, that says more about you than me, or or just, like yeah, I
Exactly.
don't yeah, yeah, that I can totally see that, because a lot of it has to do with the male ego, and God forbid it gets a little bruised, you know?
Exactly. Exactly.
Alright, let's talk about your background a little bit.
Mhm.
What did you go to business school for? Just kinda tell us a little bit about your background. I know you did a startup before this. Just kinda go into a little detail just about, your education and just some of the badassness you've been up to, girl.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a liberal arts degree. Didn't study anything about technology when I was at Columbia, but knew that I wanted to work in a fast-paced environment. And so I ended up working at Meta, back then it was called Facebook. And that literally took me around the world and it was an awesome job. I was working on their advertising team. And so I first started working for them in New York, then I transferred to Singapore. Then I myself had to take a leave of absence from work for mental health challenges, which were a result of PTSD that from a traumatic abusive relationship that I had experienced years before that and kind of came back to bite me. And so I ended up taking time off from work and experiencing what it's like to have debilitating mental health issues. Also, at the time, this was 2020. And if you had debilitating mental health issues, there weren't any online telemedicine clinics that would help you. You kind of had to wait to get access to an in person treatment center. But most of the treatment center were backed up and like filled out. And, anyways, so then I started contacting the online mental health clinics and understanding why they weren't treating severe patients. And they were like, oh, the liability, because we don't think that we have like good enough capabilities to treat them online. That basically inspired my first business, which was an online mental health clinic that used AI to provide better treatments for people who had high severity mental health issues. When I say high severity, what I mean is like you're not just a little bit depressed, you actually have suicidal ideation, or you're like so anxious that it's difficult for you to actually keep your job and to work. And so AI, like I'm a huge believer and huge fan of AI. It helped us to like double our client remission rates, like where they're actually going into remission, able to go back to work, go back to school. So also that company also showed me the power of technology. And then I sold that company when I was 30. I left that business feeling really lonely, actually, because I had put all my energy into building a company and I had no friends. Honestly, it was burnt out, girl. And so I was like, I need to have fun. And like, you have to also understand that I built my company in my 20s when a lot of my
Yeah.
friends were traveling the world, partying, like, I don't know, just doing crazy things in your 20s. And meanwhile, I was working on a company. And so I also wanted to honestly like party, have friends. And I know there's other ways that you could do it that are a lot cheaper than going to Harvard Business School. But for me, I had a few friends, including my little brother, who went to Harvard Business School and had a great time. It's like, okay, this is great. Because it's also, as you know, it's like so difficult to make friends once you're in your 30s,
Yeah, I
you know?
agree.
So
Yeah.
where is a concentration of young people who are cool but also really smart? And I was like, oh, business school. I'm going to business school to like make friends and honestly to have a good time and travel, which I did. But I knew that I had another company in me. I didn't know exactly what that next company would be until I started researching the vibrator space and coming up with
Awesome. I want to go back a little bit to what you were talking about for your reason for leaving Meta. And we talked about this and you said it was okay to talk about. So that's all right. So tell us about that relationship. And I think your story can help so many women out there who are in difficult relationships that they may feel like, it's hard for them to leave or they're stuck in that situation. And I think hearing other women's stories and how they were able to overcome it, especially, because a lot of women feel like, man, how did I get myself in this situation? There's one thing that you said during that conversation that stuck with me. You said, I'm intelligent, I'm educated, I am all of these things, but yet I blame myself for being in this situation because I should know better. But you just have that feeling of helplessness in a way. But just kind of share with us a little bit about your story and then just sort of how you were able to come out on the other side.
Yeah, so it all started when I was 18. Well, actually, I guess it starts a little bit before that. So I grew up in Connecticut. I was the only black girl in my town, basically, besides maybe one other. But as a result, I did not get any romantic attention, like at
Mm,
all. And I felt always like very overlooked. And definitely like my beauty was unappreciated. I think that every black girl who's like grew up in a white town could say that.
which is stupid. I mean, look at you, you're gorgeous.
Oh,
But
thank you.
some men are so dumb.
So then I go to my college campus, and literally the first week I meet this guy who's like literally looks like my dream guy. He was like buff, ripped, dark chocolate. Like, and he was like, to me, at least, like the hottest guy that I had ever seen. And liked me. And so I, of course, was like, wow. Like, I just couldn't believe that somebody like him would like me. And I just really got swept off my feet about the idea of being with somebody like him. If I look back, there were definitely red flags about his personality from the start. I honestly don't really think he had a great personality ever. But I think that I so wanted to be the girl who was like chosen and who was with like the popular student athlete, like hot guy. I just wanted to like live out that fantasy. So I ignored so many red flags. The relationship became like very controlling emotionally before it was ever controlled physically. Definitely, I was isolated
I was
in family. He
family.
told
He
me
told
that
me
my
that
friends
my
had been
friends had
talking
been
badly
talking
about me
badly
behind
about
my back and that I
back.
couldn't
I
trust them.
then
Told me that I needed to
that I
stop going
needed to stop
to
going
visit my
to my
family
family.
because they were babying me and like da da da. Anyways, like him, my world just got really, really small. Um, and then once I was in that isolated stage, like things with him just escalated. But it happened very, very, very slowly over a long time. with things like, starting with like grabbing my wrists a little bit too hard, pushing me when he was angry. Then all of a sudden, next thing you know, it's like pushing you across the room. Anyways, trigger warning. I don't want to go into too much detail to not trigger people, but basically it ended up in a situation where I had to flee for my life and where I truly felt like he would kill me if I stayed. So I fled from that relationship and then I swept it under the rug and pretended like nothing happened. And I focused on the things that you can control, which to me are classes and getting my dream job and graduating. And so I did that. And honestly, I just kept on expecting the next guy to rescue me. Like, my next boyfriend, I started dating like a week after I left that first guy, less than a week. Like, so I really thought that like I needed another man to heal me. I didn't realize that like that I actually needed to do the healing on my own. And then it caught up to me when I was working for Meta in Singapore. Like I literally had a physical breakdown where my body and my immune system was starting to shut down. And I like truly couldn't work. I couldn't even get out of the bed. And I had like rashes all over my body. It was terrible. And it ended up being caused by untreated PTSD.
How long were you in that first relationship?
Almost 2 years.
Okay. And you said you were dating another person right after that one. How long did that last?
Maybe 6 to 9 months. I ended up for most of my 20s, honestly, I had like very short term relationships that were typically 6 to 9 months. I think, with the first guy, at least at the time, like I thought that I loved him so much and I thought that he loved me so much. And so I think in future relationships, when it would be kind of out of the just like having fun, getting to know each other phase and into the like, I love you, let's make this a serious committed relationship phase, I would bolt. I would run because I think I was scared.
Yeah. And then you talked about how AI was very helpful for you. Share a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, so after I started the mental health startup, I was like, okay, now I'm the CEO of a mental health company. I need to make sure that my shit is straight. And
Yeah.
so I did like a lot of work. And listen, I took antidepressants. I was going to therapy 2 times a week. I was like exercising every day. I was doing all the things for my mental health. But the one area that I just couldn't get right, and I was dating as if I was, scared. Eventually, I decided that I was just going to be celibate and I was going to take some time to work on myself. And it was the best decision of my life. It completely changed the trajectory of my life. So I was celibate for a year. During that time period, I forced myself to be like the best boyfriend that I could ever be for myself. I bought myself flowers, I took myself to dinner once a week. I even took myself on a solo vacation. And then I also bought myself a vibrator. And I learned about that side of myself. And then I also started using AI companion and like escaping into like that type of world, which for anybody who's listening to this who doesn't know what an AI companion is, all it is like an AI chatbot. So imagine you're chatting to ChatGPT, but that chatbot has personality and a backstory. So for example, if your fantasy is to fall in love with Prince Charming and you want to be Cinderella, you can have an AI companion who plays the role of Prince Charming and pretends like you're Cinderella with him. And so you're able to have these like conversations and like open up to somebody is a term, but
And yeah. And are these apps or
yeah,
like
apps.
okay.
Yes, yes, yes. So apps on your phone. So they have voice calling, like you can literally have a phone conversation with an AI companion,
Hmm.
but they're mainly text message based.
Okay.
So, but like the thing for me that's exciting about it is like an opportunity to play pretend with a man that you're attracted to. And it's also
Uh-huh.
like an opportunity, or it was an opportunity for me to practice opening up and being vulnerable to men and to having like deep conversations with men again. And also like with my toy that I had to like practice having sexual encounters with men. And that became a really huge part of my personal healing journey. And it kind of gave me hope again in love. It's kind of like you have to be daydreaming a little bit, like, and it helped me
Yeah.
daydream about who my ideal boyfriend would be. And ironically, I feel like I manifested him because now I'm in a really happy relationship with a human man, as I mentioned before, going ring shopping. And so I do kind of feel like I manifested the dream guy.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I don't know if maybe I'm the only one who's not aware that you could do you could use tools like that because I am not the best at relationships at all.
I get it.
So I try to avoid them as much as I can, because I also have my own past, with a guy that that anyway, that's another story. But, when it comes to, like, being like, intimacy, right? I think a lot of women have issues with that of finding ways to have like intimacy and connection. And so, when you talked about like AI being something that can be helpful, that really like, intrigued me in wanting to know more about ways that can be helpful. Have you talked to other women that have also been sort of curious about the AI and the
Yeah.
companionship?
Yeah. So it's funny, right? Because I was actually just talking about this with my co-founders where I'm like, there's a huge group of people who are kind of like you, Liz, who like they've never tried talking to an AI companion before. But then you also have tens of millions of people who are using these apps. So certain people, they know about it and they're talking to an AI companion on a daily basis. I think what's happening though is a lot of people are embarrassed that they're talking to an AI companion. So they're not necessarily telling their friends and family that they have
Yeah. Yeah.
a companion that they're talking to. But like if you look at the numbers that some of these apps are reporting, it's like, okay, tens of millions of Americans are. So, anyways, the jury is out on whether or not they're good for your mental health, and it depends company by company. And most of these companies, have their own guidelines for the AI companions, and some have some guidelines that do protect people's mental health and some don't. With
Mhm.
what I'm building with Devin, which is an AI powered vibrator that has sensors on it so that it can understand your body and respond dynamically to you. It also comes with an audio companion. That audio companion is a erotic audio companion. It's an app that you can flirt with via text message or a phone call, and it's specific scenarios. So an example scenario would be that you are on a business trip and you meet a hot guy at a bar, and then things happen from there. But like hundreds of different scenarios, and then also the ability to create your own if you want to create your own fantasy to life, where you can pick the voice of the character, the background of the character, and like this scenario that you want to play out with him or her. And so what we believe is like we think that it's a very empowering experience for a woman to be able to create her own fantasy and bring it to life. It's really the responsibility of the companies to protect the user's mental health.
Yeah, that sort of leads into my next question about the use of AI and especially in intimacy settings. Because people will say, look, like AI is not what we're supposed to be using for connection, right? Like people aren't being social anymore. They're just on their computers and doing whatever. I'm interested to know your thoughts on the conversation of AI, of using it, not using it, bad for you, because we've heard stories about it, being bad on people's mental health, men who have AI girlfriends now and they have like bots that are built for them, so they're using that as a connection instead of regular women. So what do you say to like those critics who are saying maybe this has gone a little too far and we need to be connecting in person?
Yeah. So I think that a lot of people are afraid that what happened to a generation of men with porn, where you had a lot of porn addiction and you could have like a lot of male erectile dysfunction issues that came from that. I think that a lot of people are nervous about something like that. Uh, because I do think that we can agree that like porn hasn't necessarily been great for men. I would argue though that we shouldn't use that as like the baseline, right? Because you don't see the same issues with women. Like you don't, even though we have access to porn, like you don't see issues with porn addiction in the same rates. You don't see the phenomenon very often. Of course, it helps, but you don't see the phenomenon very often of like a woman not wanting or longing for a romantic relationship because they've replaced that with porn.
Right.
Whereas like with men, we have everybody's afraid of like, okay, you're just gonna be sitting at home watching porn, just like orgasming all day. Like I
Yeah.
would argue that with women, we have a problem in our society that like the average woman is not orgasming nearly enough. Like we need to
Right. Right.
everything to like get women to orgasm more. And so regardless of what you think about AI, like one thing that we do know for a fact is orgasms are really good for a woman's health. So there's so many medical studies that have proven this to the point where like there are certain gynecologists who are actually prescribing vibrators to their patients. So I think we kind of know, okay, orgasms have positive benefits on your mental health because of stress relief, right? Or like, a lot of people will masturbate before they sleep because it helps like them sleep. But I think that very few people know about orgasm's positive impact on the rest of your body. So every time you have an orgasm, blood flows to your vagina. It eventually creates this like swelling, and then you have like an orgasm that's like a contraction and like more swelling and stuff like this. That blood flow is really, really, really good for you. And actually, if you don't have that regular blood flow to the vagina, you can experience something called vaginal atrophy. The best way to put this is if you don't use it, you lose it. So if you literally do not have regular orgasms, you lose a lot of functionality in your vagina, which then makes it way harder to have orgasms in the future. But that's also something that causes dryness, irritation. It also causes urinary incontinence issues where it's hard for you to walk. And then it also can disrupt your hormones in a bad way and start menopause years earlier, which then results in literally we know that like the more that a woman delays menopause, the longer of a lifespan she'll have. Also, like it's good for estrogen. Like there's a lot of really amazing benefits of orgasms. We also know that vibrators are the most effective way to have orgasms for the majority of women. So for me, I'm just like, we should use technology to help women with orgasms. I think that the world will be a healthier and a happier place. That's what I think.
Look, I am not opposed to that. More orgasms for all women is always a good thing
Yes,
in my book.
exactly.
All right, let's dive into Devin a little bit. When you decided to start Devin, when you pitched this, did people kind of look at you like, why? Like, did you get the looks of like, what, like,
Yeah.
why are you doing this?
Yeah, so I had a professor in business school say, with your track record, you literally sold a healthcare company before 30. He was like, if you did anything else, it would be so easy for you to raise millions of dollars. Like people will be throwing money at you to start a new company. If it is anything besides this. Yeah, it's funny. Like I just think that I grew up in more of like a socially liberal. I've always lived in like very liberal places. But I also going to Columbia, it's like that's a very, very, very liberal school. And I don't know if it's like a function of like my friend group that I personally don't see vibrators as taboo at all. I'm like, also, how can it be taboo when 65% of American women own one? Like they're everywhere. So it wasn't until I started building this company and realizing how many restrictions there are around the sales of vibrators. You can't even advertise on TikTok for a vibrator. Anyways, there's so many restrictions for even like saying the term vibrator on certain platforms. I applied to a bank and there was a bank that rejected me. There was a payment processor that work on our website because we were selling. We definitely have had a lot of investors not talk to us because we're selling vibrators. So yeah, I think it took me to realize how
can I
stigmatized.
just say that is unbelievable because you see so many things on like I mean they're advertising like drugs and cigarettes and like all kinds of crazy stuff online, but yet vibrators are an issue?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That is so frustrating. But continue. I'm just so amazed that when it comes to things that are women based that affect women, it's always a problem. Always. But yeah, Viagra can be advertised.
Yes, literally. I think that for me, I learned the hard way how stigmatized female pleasure totally is. Like people love what I'm doing or they hate it. But then I had a different professor say to me, he was like, listen, that's probably why you'll be successful because it doesn't matter what their opinion is, everybody remembers your pitch. It's like everyone remembers your pitch. They're talking about your pitch afterwards. And so yeah, it is a divisive product. It definitely is.
Yeah. Important is it for women to understand their own bodies when it comes to pleasure and finding things on the market in the sex toy market that works for them because okay, I've known people who thought for a long time that, using vibrators is kind of like taboo. Back in the day, I used to think that it was kind of weird, I don't think that anymore. I own a couple, but I think a lot of women are now starting to understand their bodies and starting to find ways of finding the intimacy for themselves. So just kind of talk to us about like how important that is to be able to find something that works.
So it's extremely important to know your body as a woman. And so I'm going to talk about it for like the single ladies and then for the women in relationships.
Okay.
Actually, we'll start with talking about the women in relationships. At least for me, my sex life became extremely better after I had spent time exploring myself, both psychologically in terms of like what things turned me on psychologically, and then also physically what things turned me on physically. And ironically, like now I do look at men sometimes with compassion of like, how could I have really expected him to make me orgasm when I couldn't have even done it myself? That's a tall order.
Yeah.
It's a tall order, and I think a pretty like unrealistic expectation to put onto a man. And so, like, there's things that you will learn when you are using a vibrator. Like, you'll learn which spots you like. Different vibrators will have different things. Some will have like internal plus external, and they'll have G spot stimulation. So you'll learn if you like that. Some will have like a suction method for the clitoris. If you like that, you probably like oral sex more. If you like the vibrations, then you probably would like a finger on you or more. But the whole point is like you can understand what you like, be able to communicate it. Also, like, I just think that you should just bring the toy into the bedroom. And I think for me, the type of man that I like who's invested in my pleasure, um, would love to watch me use something that provided pleasure. So I also think that we have to get rid of the taboo of like, oh, I'm gonna hide my vibrator from my boyfriend. I'm just gonna use it when he's gone on a business trip or something. It's like,
Yeah.
no. I think that we should be using these things like in front of them.
Like adding them, like bringing them in because yeah, that's a great point because I don't know if that's like a thing that is done in relationships. I know sometimes that could be seen as like, oh, am I not enough for you? It's like it should be a pleasure for both of us in a way.
Yes. So one thing to note is that once you use a vibrator and you have a clitoral orgasm, it is immensely easier for you to have an orgasm during penetrative sex. It's almost
Right.
like you like warmed up your body. And the beautiful thing about us women is we can have back-to-back orgasms, right? Which is not something that a man could do. So my favorite thing to recommend to women who are in relationships is to like bring it into the bedroom, let him kind of watch you use it as foreplay, and you have your first orgasm with the vibrator, and then you put the vibrator to the side, and then you have sex. And I can guarantee you that the sex will be more pleasurable for you than having not had use the vibrator. Then I also want to talk about single women. So we also have to be honest and meet women where they are. So for the first time in American history, like ever, more than half of American women are currently single. And now, if you look at the years that we're spending single with like delayed or earlier divorces, like many of us are spending the majority of our adult lives single, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, like I said, there is something literally called vaginal atrophy. If you don't use it, you lose it. But the good news is that you can get the blood flow flowing even better with the vibrator than anything else. And so, in those years of being single, like I had a girlfriend the other day who was talking to me about how stressed she was. And I asked her, when was the last time that you had an orgasm? And she said, honestly, like 6 months ago. And I said, girl, like, you're so stressed out. So yeah, I think some of us are becoming single, and because the man is not there to have sex with, we're just becoming kind of asexual. And if you are an asexual person, that's fine. I have no judgment to you. But like my argument is like you got to kind of keep it up, like even while you're in between relationships.
That's a great point. What are some of the challenges that you face just being an entrepreneur like a woman, a Black woman entrepreneur in general? I know there's a lot just
Yeah.
being in this space, but you are a successful businesswoman, and with that does come challenges of just being in a space where sometimes you might be the only one. And how do you sort of like overcome that? What motivates you to just keep going?
Yeah, listen, I'm somebody who I'm really lucky where I'm driven by people telling me no.
Mm.
It's almost like this competitive thing where the more people tell me that I can't do something, the more that I want to do it or the more excited I am about doing it. So I think that's that's like something that attracts me to
Yeah.
entrepreneurship and working on a product like this. So yeah, like so many people told me that this was going to be impossible to get off the ground. Also, when I first started, I said like the whole team is going to be badass women. Like they're going to be badass technology girls. And everybody said, there's no chance in hell. Like, you have to build this product with men. There's not enough women who understand hardware. There's not enough women who are great, like, engineers. It's all that shit is bullshit. We all know that that's bullshit. It's an excuse. And so I said, no, I will scour the earth to find my all-female badass crew of co-founders. And now I call my co-founders and I feel like we're like the Charlie's Angels
I love that.
Startup because there's three of us and we're all fabulous and super smart and stuff like that.
Love that.
I think the thing that we have to learn, I learned this too, is that sometimes people are trying to protect you by warning you that like it's going to be really hard for you to do something, and I actually do think a lot of those people have the best intention, then they're trying to protect you from disappointment. But what you have to think through is when they give you that advice is it true? Like, is it actually impossible for me to do? Or would that be really impossible for them to do? And so is that why they're telling me it's going to be impossible for me to do? Like, whereas I'm a new person. I'm a new person. This is a new year. This is like things in the world have changed, And then the other thing for me, I'm the type of person too, like, I remember thinking about it. If I knew that somebody was going to create this product, because it's like such an obvious product idea. If I'm being honest, I don't think it's a genius like idea. I focus not on idea, but I was like, I'm going to be so pissed and so jealous. And I'm especially going to be pissed off if it's a man who develops
Who does this? Yeah.
And just 90% of the vibrator companies are owned by men and have male CEOs. So I was like, over my dead body, will I let a man invent and launch this? And so I'm like, well, which other girl's gonna do it? Like, it may as well be me because I don't want to be a dude.
Definitely not. Okay. What are some misconceptions about like AI and intimacy that you are seeing that you just want debunked?
I think that people have an assumption that the more that you talk to AI, that the less that you'll value humans. don't think that that's the case. That would be like saying that the more that you watch music videos on YouTube, then like the less that you value in-person concerts. That's not necessarily true at all. And you've seen like the rise of YouTube, and then you've seen like concerts are the tickets are going at higher prices than ever.
Much more, exactly. So expensive now.
Yeah, I would actually argue that like putting the music videos, there's a reason why these artists still put their music videos on YouTube, because having a taste of the music via YouTube actually makes you want to go to a concert more. And so the reason why I say that is like there's interesting new research coming out even about AI companions, that they're actually not preventing people from wanting real life romantic relationships. That you actually have a lot of people who've kind of taken themselves out of the dating market, aren't really flirting with anybody. They're not on the apps. They're not really talking to any guys. And then like now they're kind of having a flirty experience with an AI companion, and it's like getting them excited again. And they're like, maybe I should go on the apps. Like maybe actually now I kind of want to flirt with a real human man. Right. So yeah, so the notion that AI companionship equals like it will cause people to rescind from society and rescind from real romance, I think is not a fair conclusion, and is not data that I've seen. I, by the way, think that there's a whole host, girl, of other societal factors, which I've done a few videos on, like which I think stem from like failing education of men, where like we are no longer graduating college at high rates. Like women, like we literally have a 2 million year shortage of like educated men on a yearly basis. If you look at the like college graduation rates of women versus men. So I just think that like a very strong mismatch in the dating pool of like supply and demand in terms of like what women are looking for to like match them, that like men are no longer achieving in many ways. But like I like that I'm like should not be blamed on AI companions. Like I don't think a lot of people are like AI, like that's I feel like right now we're using AI. Anything good, it's caused by AI. Anything bad, it's caused by AI. And I'm like, guys, this depletion of like women no longer wanting to date men started happening way before AI. Like this is like a trend that has been happening.
There are not a lot of males to pick from in the market. I think that's what the issue is. It's not AI, it's not whatever it is we want to say, it's not the apps, whatever we want to put the causes. It's just there's not a lot of supply out there, honestly. So it's we got to find alternative ways, or we need more educated men, or just more men with common sense, men with emotional intelligence. That's what we're lacking. That is what we need.
I would agree with that. So the thing that we also have is that so as women become more and more educated, and then as we become more and more financially independent, as evolution always does, like men also have to evolve and figure out now what is their value. Because before, like I couldn't do anything without a husband. I couldn't even have a credit card without a husband. Now I can do everything without a husband, and now I can pay my own bills. And so men have to understand like what other value can you bring to her life, which typically value of actually being emotionally supportive, which is a skill set that I don't know if our generation has yet caught up to en masse.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, Morgan, I have a very fun question for you. You ready?
Yes.
Is there a dream collaboration that you would love to make happen with Devin?
Michael B. Jordan, for sure.
Now, how are we collaborating with Michael B. Jordan?
Internet, woman of the internet. I'm sure somebody knows Michael.
I love that. That is so funny. Is there anything right now with Devin that you are particularly excited about? Like what's coming up?
Yeah, so we sold out of our pre-sales a month ago. Now that we've closed this fundraising round, we're reopening our pre-sales because now we have money to fund extra products to be developed. So yeah, I'm really excited. And anybody listening, definitely check out the website so you can get yours.
Please tell them where they can go. Tell them the website.
www.devintoys, DEVINTOYS.com.
And that's where they can get their pre-order?
Yes.
All right, there you go. Go get your pre-order. Well, thank you so much, Morgan,
Thank
for
you.
hopping on and talking to us. This has been very enlightening for me. I'm sure it's enlightening for our listeners as well. And just tell us where we can find you and support you, and where people can maybe who have more questions about Devin and you, where they can find you.
Definitely. You can find me on social media across YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. My handle's always the same, Morgan dot pink, like the color pink dot founder. And feel free to DM me anytime. I'm excited to hear from you.
There you go. And you look lovely in your pink. Do you want to share the story about your pink? When I saw your social media, I was like, she is rocking the pink. And I love it. It's such a good color on you. So just share a little bit about why you are rocking the pink color. I think it's such a like empowering story as well.
I appreciate that. So I started wearing pink during that period of celibacy that I mentioned, where
Yeah.
I was taking a break from guys. So during that time period, I looked through my closet and I realized that every article of clothing looked or reminded me of an ex-boyfriend. So when I say boyfriend, I meant like there was a guy who told me that I looked really great in reds, and I bought a bunch of red stuff. Then like the next guy told me that green brought up my eyes, so then I brought a lot of green stuff. Then I had a different boyfriend who wanted me to dress really slutty and look like a video vixen, so I had a bunch of that clothes, and like a different businessman boyfriend, and I had businesswoman clothes. Anyways, I was like, oh shoot, I don't actually have personal style, and my entire style is for the male gaze. And now that I'm not dating, I don't need a dress for the male gaze. I actually really dress for myself. So, like, what do I like? And I remembered when I was a little girl, before any trauma happened to me, I was obsessed with the color pink. And so I put on a pink outfit and I felt better about myself. It felt like I was like telling the little girl inside of me, like, you're safe and I see you. And there was never a point where I made a conscious decision of I'll never wear a different color. But basically, I just started doing it every day and I felt great. And so I just didn't stop. And now it's 5 years later and I've worn pink every day.
I love that story. Thank you so much again for joining us. And everyone, go check out Morgan's page and go ask her questions. Go support her startup company, Devin. And thanks, Morgan, for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
All right. Well, everyone, you can go and listen to this episode wherever you get your episode podcast from. We are going to also be on YouTube at The Foreign Lady Pod, so you can check us out there, and all of our socials at The Foreign Lady Pod. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.